Hey, welcome to the Conscious Report. I'm Dbroze, as I'm sure you know. Today we're discussing voting, and specifically non-voting. As you guys know, we're about just a month over, close to the 2012 presidential election here in the United States of America. In one corner you have Mitt Romney, in the other corner you have Mitt Romney. In one corner you have Obama, in the other corner you have Obama. Together they create a monster that we call Obama. Rambama to some people. So we're discussing specifically some essays that I've been going over and checking out at voluntarist.com. You guys should check that out. Lots of good information on voluntarism itself, and broken up into different categories like the non-voting section. And I've been looking at two different essays. One is discussing non-voting as an act of secession. There's a quote from Gore Vidal saying that there really is only one true party in this country, and it has two incestuous branches, the Democratic and the Republican branches of these one tyrannous party. And the other essay is by Carl Watner, and it asks the question, is voting an act of violence? And so that's pretty much where our topic is going to stay today. Is voting in the two-party system? I call it the two-party system because the majority of people only know there's two parties in this country, or they think of third parties as more of a joke. But there are more than 3 parties, 4, 5, and probably hundreds of parties in this country that attempt to run every year. You've never heard of them because we have a massive media blackout on anything that challenges the status quo. Whether you support Ron Paul or libertarians in general, you may have noticed the continuous blackout of Ron Paul since the 2008 elections and the 2012 election season just recently ending for Ron Paul in Tampa. I mean, so much has happened throughout the election season just getting to this point that was not covered by the mainstream media, and most of it dealt with either successes or victories for Ron Paul, like huge attendance in rallies and marches, and it included downplaying him, and he wasn't even running as a third party. He was running within the two-party system. People say, well, look, you got to change it from the inside, right? So, they say don't go third party. Ron Paul tried to do it. He went third party in 1988 for the Libertarian Party and was unable to get anywhere. So he went into the Republican mold and tried to change things from within, and he has a lasting legacy. But did he get elected president? No, he didn't. In fact, his entire party turned against him and changed the rules, so he couldn't get in. So that's what I would say is point one on why to not legitimize the state through voting. They showed us in the 2012 Republican National Convention and the changing of the rules that I'm sure is old news to many of you out there. They showed us that if you get close to beating them at their own game, they'll simply change the rules on you. How can you respect a system like that? How can you be expected to take it seriously and go out there and still take the time to get registered into their system, get yourself registered as another number, and go ask for permission? Write something on a slip of paper and hand it over to them and say, please, ask this person to set me free. Can I vote for this person so they'll set me free? And to me, it just makes me sick to legitimize the state in almost any fashion, so I try to limit my use of the state, because the state is a tool. Some people see the state as God and let the state use them as a tool, but the state really is a tool for us. And we can use that tool to destroy itself. Which is, I believe, what we're working towards with creating a voluntary society. So, is voting an act of violence? Well, again, the first point being that they're going to change the rules on you if you get anywhere near beating them at their own system. Another aspect of this essay says that widespread voting, it equals consent in the eyes of the masses. To them, having a large number of voters come out and take the time to register and to do all that stuff and to vote and go to the polling places and vote in secret and do all this stuff, it legitimizes what their theater, their sideshow of the image that we have a free nation that every 4 years gets to vote, and goes through a tough process, and we get the best winner, and and things change. It's all an illusion. It's all a puppet show. It's a game, and it's designed to make you feel empowered, but it's a false empowerment. What I would prefer is if more people would seek direct alternatives to voting. If you've got to vote, if you want to vote, stick with what's happening in your local area. We can help each other by helping with ourselves, and that goes for the internal struggle as well as our communities, our cities, our towns, getting laws passed on a local or county level if you choose to. We'll save it for another discussion on whether or not those laws are legitimate even on a local level. But at the very least, if you want to get involved in politics, stick to the local level, because that's where we can really affect change. But the more people that go out and vote in these national presidential elections, the huge elections, the more it legitimizes it to the state that they have this power. And maybe even some of those people out there have this false idea that they are really representing the people. I mean, obviously some of them are so bought out and so full of themselves that they know that they are, in fact, full of shit. Others, though, maybe truly think that they are representing the people, and we're seeing more, I think, of these good guys come out and attempt to run for office. I've got friends who maybe consider themselves anarchists and would never have tried to vote or to run for office, but they don't see any other solution. And so we've got more people who are just common everyday people, which is what it was like originally in this country, the everyday man running for office and representing his village and his town. And now we have lobbyists, basically lobbyists for the corporations and for the government, running for office and ruling us and delegating out what we can and can't eat as it pertains to their profit margin. So when you vote, you give the government a certain legitimacy that allows it to not have to show its true colors, which is a gang of criminals. We are represented and oppressed by the largest gang of criminals that have ever assembled in one massive land and in the entire history of the planet. I think that the United States empire, and not even just within our continental borders, but when you look at all the bases and other places that we are basically eroding other people's sovereignty by coming in and bombing them or taking them over with military bases and doing these things, our empire is vast and it's spread throughout this planet. And that empire here domestically, it's not forced to use violence in the way it is in other countries, because those other people fight them off. The terrorists, the people we say are terrorists, they fight for their freedom every day against our country. And here at home, we're faced with the criminals in a more legislative fashion. So by voting for them and acting as if it has any air of legitimacy, it allows them to not have to show their true colors and to not ever have to exercise violence in the fashion they do around the world. And even though they can hide that violence, and maybe it's not shown on our TV screens anymore like it was in the Vietnam era, the violence is still there. And if you want to find it, if you want to know what's really going on in your world, you can find it, and you can understand what your vote is supporting. So this next little part comes from the essay as well, and it has to do with another idea that we'll explore briefly. What is your role in the violence that's taking place in your name? Because by voting, you legitimize the state, and then the state goes and commits violence in your name, paid for by your taxes, with your approval, because you voted. You said, this system is legitimate enough that I choose to throw my piece of paper out there, my ballot out there, and hope that the guy I want wins. And when you do that, whether you win or lose, the state is then empowered by the people, supposedly. And what do they do with that approval? With that approval from the people? Well, they go and start wars. They go and launch imperialist drone wars around the world, and as well as everything else happening around the world, they're also using the legitimacy that we've given them to take away our rights here at home. We have a president, if you can call him that, who is considering passing executive orders to start regulating and restricting the internet based on cybersecurity. Why is he choosing an executive order, you say? Well, because the people of this country have rejected every single piece of legislation that has come up to regulate the internet, and neither party are supporting it. So what is he going to do? He's going to pass it himself. So this is what a president, a government can do once you legitimize them. You've empowered him 4 years ago. You gave him your vote. Maybe some of you did. I know I didn't. I wasn't allowed to vote. Some of you out there gave him your vote. And maybe you want to give it to Mitt Romney, or you want to give it to anyone. I really feel like you should give yourself your vote. Vote for yourself. Vote for nobody 2012, or vote for yourself. Really put the empowerment that you're doing when you're taking the time and the energy to go out there and cast this vote. Put it into yourself. Put it into your community. Stop looking for these false leaders to save you. By voting, it is clear that each voter endorses the government system under which he or she lives. By the act of voting, each voter is saying it is right and proper for some people, acting in the name of the state, to pass laws and to use violence to compel obedience to those laws as if they are not obeyed. So clearly the voter, by pulling down the handle at a voting booth, has not used violence personally. Voting is not the same as pulling the trigger of a gun. The voter has not used force any more than the lawmaker, the president, or the judge does when they pass or sign a law or issue a judicial decree. Yet all these people have either supported or participated in a system of government which ultimately results in the people being bullied or forced into obedience. So whether or not you are the one holding the gun, or you're the one buying the bullets or loading it, there's a gun in the room, and that is the state, that is government. And whether we get to vote every 4 years or every 2 years or whatever it may be, it's not, I believe, it's not the tool that we need to use to affect real change. In the past, it may have done things, and maybe still on a local level it's possible for us to do these things. I'm personally still fighting for legislation here in Houston, trying to work to remove fluoride out of the water. So I still do give some legitimacy to the local level, and I'm trying to affect what change I can here in my city while we still have a chance to be a free city. Beyond that, though, I'm going to work to eliminate the federal government's intrusion into my life and my dealings with them as much as possible. So, moving on. There's a meme going around with George Carlin talking from one of his comedy shows. Basically, he says he's talking about the idea that how some people say if you don't vote, then you have no right to complain. Others say if you vote, then you don't have a right to complain because you're the one who put the assholes in there. But to me, the whole statement, it sounds just like the idea that sometimes if you're an activist, you're on the streets, you might have heard, go get a job, or get out of America if you don't like what's going on here. You know, and to me, that's so silly. It's stupid to think that if you don't like what's going on in your country, you should leave. You should be forced to get out instead of complain, instead of try to fix it. And to me, it's the same thing by telling somebody that, you know, if you don't vote, then you don't have a right to complain, or if you do, either way, like, you're in this country, you have a right, you have a voice, use it. You know, this system wants to make you feel guilty if you choose not to legitimize it with your vote. Some people have empowered themselves to the point that they're beyond the political system. They consider themselves post-political or apolitical. And they do this because they recognize the way the state functions, that as we've gone over, that if you get anywhere close to beating them at their own game, they'll simply change the rules. That participating in this legitimate system, this illegitimate system, makes you a participant in the violence that the state commits in your name and supposedly with, you know, your approval. Thirdly, everybody has a voice in this country, and everybody has a voice in this entire world, and you should use that voice to express the problem, you know, the issues that you have, and to bring that attention to the others around you and try to do something about that. Don't silence yourself just because you don't vote, and don't silence yourself just because you did vote, because, you know what, Obama tricked a lot of people. Don't be tricked again. Don't be tricked by Mitt Romney or Obama. And the fourth little point, I'm not sure where we're at now, it has to do with third-party candidates. And, you know, obviously we have Gary Johnson is running as the Libertarian Party candidate, and Jill Stein is running with the Green Party. Those are the two more well-known candidates. Also, some of you guys know about Rocky Anderson, and, you know, there's others out there. I was recently made aware that Gary Stein, he's actually trying to sue the commission that is responsible for the presidential debates for not allowing him to participate in the debates. He, as far as I'm concerned, you know, he has every right to be there. So does Jill Stein. They're on all 50 ballots, they're on a ballot in all 50 states, and they're pretty well known. Definitely, they can get some ideas out there that aren't the status quo, and that's the whole reason, again, that we're not going to see them in the debates, is because the powers that be will not let anything come on there that might disrupt their matrix and get the people to think that, wait, there's other ideas, there's other people out there. The state has done a good job in succeeding to keep people believing that third parties are fringe, and that there's, you know, it's a wasted vote. To me, what I say, you know, look into Gary Johnson, look into Jill Stein. I've interviewed Gary Johnson myself. You can check that one out, and I think we're probably going to be doing an interview with Jill Stein probably this coming weekend. And we're going to bring those people to your attention if you choose to vote, if you must vote in the presidential election. Just what I'm saying is vote your conscience. And if that leads you to vote for third-party candidates like Jill Stein or Gary Johnson, or even if you want to give your vote to Vermin Supreme, then do it. Vote your conscience either way. And if when you vote your conscience, if it leads you to Obamney, then you probably have no conscience. But vote your conscience. Either vote third party or do whatever you think you got to do, and hope that it helps. Hope that maybe there's a huge revolution that comes in and third party candidates get some number that's unseen, and by 2016 maybe that we might get over 50%, and by 2020 we might crack 60, and we're looking at 2030 we might actually get a third party candidate in there. But I'm done. I'm not waiting for 2016 to look for change, and I'm not looking to 2014 or any of these other electoral dates. It's time for us to start finding the answers within ourselves, within our communities, and start working on direct action. It's been past time, but definitely we have to remember that these elections, one thing, look into the Dbroze voting machines. And that pretty much cancels this whole video on why voting is worthless and pointless in this country. But look into the Dbroze voting machines. That's the final point of this. But remember that the elections in any country around the world are some of the easiest times for governments to divide the people. Right now everything is right or left and Republican, Democrat, and you can go see CNN and Fox News and MSNBC and all of them running their 24-hour election coverage, playing you against, telling you why to hate the other party, and why Mitt Romney sucks ass, and why Obama is this hero, and back and forth and back and forth. They're trying to keep us all divided. Whoever they are, the Illuminati, the elite, the banksters, the people who run things, you need to understand that the elections are their tool to divide us. And we have to remember and recognize as well, if you're paying attention to reports from the World Bank, from the World Health Organization, on poverty, the rise of poverty that's coming up, the rise of food prices, and if the war drums keeping beat to go to Iran, we can expect to see oil and gas prices go up as well. So tough times are up ahead, and we're going to need a strong sense of self and a strong sense of community. We're going to need a strong sense of self and community to get through the changes that are coming up ahead. So look more into non-voting. Go to voluntaryist.com, you can find some of those essays. Look into voluntarism and agorism. Look into methods of direct action. There's a lot you can do besides voting. If you're still going to vote your conscience, go third party. Maybe we'll have a revolution through the Electoral College. I don't believe it's going to happen, but hey, who knows what can happen. Either way, just stand strong, stay with a strong sense of yourself. Know that these leaders, whether we vote them in or not, whether we voluntarily choose to put them there or they take that stand themselves, they can never set us free. They can never create freedom. The government does not exist to create anything other than more laws, which lead to more loss of freedom for you and I. Only you have the power to set yourself free. As always, if you can hear this, you are the resistance.